The president may say because he removed the oil subsidy now, there is increase in revenue generation. How many goods do we produce in this country? Where are the industries? Where are the business firms? Do we have a stable power supply in Nigeria?
In the 1958, of course, so many things happened. There was a time when General Achebe wrote, things fall apart for the Nigerian state. What then can we write these days? And the question is, what do we write? Because we are the writers of today's history. And so we must do our bit and our quota. And on that note, I welcome you to the newspaper headlines and analysis on Dominion Television. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. This morning, we get into the stories. The papers are heavy. So many stories to be reeled out this morning. On the front pages of the newspapers, we have Pengasan's story, also quietly boldly written, but also of importance is also the president's speech, which we're also going to get into this morning. I will not be doing this alone this morning. I have with me Eboseliume Ignatius, who is joining us this morning. Good morning to you. Happy Independence to you.
Good morning, and happy Independence Day anniversary.
It's a wonderful day to be drenched.
Really,
like you said. Yeah, exactly.
It's a sign of blessing.
Absolutely. So we get
excited about it.
Let's quickly get into the stories now. The case with Pengasan and Dangote and all of the TUC is still ongoing. We've seen yesterday, also in the news this morning as well, that there is a continuum of what we've experienced in recent times. Gas users grown as Pengasan strike crashes power generation and export. That's on the Guardian newspaper this morning. That story is of interest to many people. While Pengasan President Festus Osifo was speaking to the press, he said those people that were sacked must be reinstated for anything to happen. And he says, if nothing happens, then there's nowhere to go. But that's also something to check out this morning. Meanwhile, we'll also get into the story. Tinubu hails reforms, says worst over, urges unity and optimism. Also something to talk about on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. We'll get all of that story, as you can also see on your screen this morning. Let's get into the Nigerian story before Pengasan comes up now. Eboseliume, you've been in the thick of things as to the country, Nigeria, for a while. You've seen the way the trajectory has been, the progression from the 1960s, the oil boom in the 1970s, and the Nigerian naira to a dollar, at par, and even to the pounds, also the British pounds also at par in the 1970s. For about 12 years, we have that particular scenario until 1985. So this seems like a good one. And the president, one of the things we are going to highlight today, was the president said we are on the right track. He also mentioned that we are running against time and we must do so many things to make sure we do it right now. So where do we go from here? The president said they are getting it right. The administration of the Tinubu-led administration is getting it right, according to the president this morning. What do you make of this?
Thank you, Anu. You cannot be a judge over your own case. What do you expect the president to say in the first instance? He will say he's getting it right. All the policy he has introduced since 2023 till date, how many of those policies have transformed the lives of the ordinary Nigerian? That's a fundamental question. He has actually introduced what we call radical reforms, especially the outright removal of the oil subsidy. And there is one thing you must know in economics. Subsidy causes what we call market inefficiency and price distortions in a capitalist economy. But now, there was what we call mitigation effect. There was no mitigation effect on ground. During his inauguration on May 29th, 2023, he unilaterally removed the oil subsidy. Then later there was what we call the floating of the naira. You don't float your currency. When you don't produce anything, what do we produce in this country? We are not the one producing crude. Crude is a natural resource. Nigeria is not the one producing the crude. What you do is this. You refine the crude. There are different products that you can get from crude oil alone. Nigeria is a mono economy. So when you are talking about the cost of living in Nigeria is high. The standard of living in Nigeria is low. High rate of inflation. Rate of unemployment in Nigeria is high. So you say you are getting it right. We are over 200 million people. There is one thing the president must understand. One thing is this. You are not the one to judge yourself whether you are performing or not. It is the people that will actually say that the president is actually performing. But there's one thing you must understand.
But the president has a right to say, these are the things I've done. Because, of course, people like you and people who speak to authority would say, what have you done? So if he's presenting his case, I think it's also okay. It's a no-brainer to say, okay, this is what I've done. I think that's exactly
what he's trying to tell us is this: I decided to introduce a harsh economic policy, and the policy is inflicting pains on Nigeria. It's inflicting pains on Nigerians. Nigerians are suffering. You remember the other day when the president came to celebrate with his Imperial Majesty, Oba Dr. Senator Adewolu Akamu Abdulrasheed Lajoda, Arusha 1. The president said that he knows that Nigerians are suffering the pain of a painful surgery. That shows that the president knows what he's doing. The president has now become a surgeon. Nigerians now are the ailing patient. The Federal Republic of Nigeria is the operational theater. And the surgical knife, it is the president that is holding that surgical knife. He knows that this policy will inflict pains on Nigeria.
Well,
and there is one thing the IMF said.
Okay.
He said Nigeria is going to come over this harsh economic policy in the next 15 years. Not 15 days. Not 15 minutes. Not 15 hours. Not 15 seconds. 15 solid good years. That is when Nigeria is going to come out from this pain.
But, you know, let's talk about the pain a bit. The president said this is a labor. And after a labor, something is expected. A baby is expected to be born.
Either alive or dead.
Okay, so what do you think?
Still bad.
Okay, so whether or not you think it's going to be a live baby or a dead baby, the case is the president said it's on the right track. It's on the right track. Like you also mentioned, IMF says that 15 years according to you now. So in all of this, do you think we're on the right track? Do you think the president will get us to the drive point or the landing
The president is partially on the right track. The removal of the oil subsidy was justified based on economic theory. But what about the mitigation effect? To salvage the pain. There's one thing I keep saying over and over again. Hunger is a natural instinct. Hunger is better being imagined than being experienced by the poor. But for the rich man, hunger is better being experienced than being imagined. So when we are talking about pain, is the president actually bearing the pain? Is he actually experiencing the pain? Somebody that has never experienced pain in his life, how does he explain the term called pain? So what the president would have done is this. He would not have even done it hurriedly. What he would have done is this. He would have made a wider consultation that the need has come for Nigeria to remove the oil subsidy. But what should be the alternative to salvage the situation? Because I know that if I remove the oil subsidy, Nigeria is going to bear the pain. The pain will be too much. The removal of the oil subsidy led to what we call high food inflation. Because there is one thing you must also understand, that if you are a country that is not producing capital goods, you only depend on import, there is one thing that is going to happen. Your currency will be devalued. Because you are depending on what? On import. Look at our currency. For now, it has become devalued. Do you know why the currency became devalued? I remember during the days of General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, he applied for a loan, $4 billion, before the IMF. The IMF now came with their own policy, that your own currency is too strong. Look at it. IMF himself, death trap, that your currency is strong. Go and devalue your currency. Nigeria have no choice. They devalued the currency. Up to date, till date, Nigerian currency is being devalued on a daily basis. So it's a big problem. So when we are saying that you are on the right track, now the president may say because he removed the oil subsidy now, there is increase in revenue generation. Increase in revenue generation is not the same thing like GDP, increase in GDP. When you are talking about GDP, you are talking about the gross domestic product, the amount of goods and services produced and rendered by a country, the value. How many goods do we produce in this country? Where are the industries? Where are the business firms? Do we have a stable power supply in Nigeria? That's a rhetorical question. Do we have a stable power supply in Nigeria? What about the government economic policy? Is it favorable? You decided to increase interest rate for commercial loan. So it's very difficult for anyone to go into the business sector of Nigeria. It's a problem. So when you are saying you are getting it high, how? Explain. Probably because the president is an accountant. He's not an economist.
You know, just to speak on that, the president, one of the high points of the president's speech today was that we are now a net exporter, quoting the president now. Nigeria has recorded a trade surplus for 5 consecutive quarters. We are now selling more to the world than we are buying, in a fundamental shift that strengthens our currency and creates jobs at home. Nigeria's trade surplus increased by 44.3% in the second quarter of 2025. These are the projections according to what we have on paper. How does this reflect to the average Nigerian?
Those are rhetorics. There is one thing you must not take away from the president. He's an orator. You cannot take it away from him. He's an orator.
So what he did today was an oratory experience.
Oratory. What does it translate? Good intention is not enough. Implementation is what counts. You talk about the agricultural sector. We have failed in that sector. You have to develop agricultural sector first before you go into industrialization. When you are talking about cutlass or hoe, it's an English word. That shows that there was a generation in Europe that was using hoe and cutlass to provide food. But when the population was increasing, there was the need for them to go by the way of mechanization. That was what led to the invention called tractor. Do we have industry? Where are the industries? Let me give you an example now. A box of chocolate in UK costs £10. £10 is not a small amount of money. But the raw material is being derived from Africa, especially West African countries. And I keep saying it today, the price of raw material is cheap, but the price for refined product is high. You make more money from refined product, processed product, than from raw material. Raw material are very cheap. But when you now process the raw material into finished goods, you make more money. That is why those advanced nations of the world, they are making more money from crude. Because they will refine the crude and sell it back to us. Now, a box of chocolate is costing £10. And I'm telling you today, 10 kg of cocoa bean does not cost up to £10. What an irony. So there is nothing stopping us as a country that the time has come for us to also export chocolate to UK. We can process the chocolate into international standard and sell it to them. When you not sell it to them at the rate of £10, it stimulates your economy. I'm just giving you an illustration. Yep. What have they done? Now, the price, there was one time in this country, during Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's regime, current regime, a bag of rice was even sold at almost 110,000. It was sold. Let us be honest to ourselves. Is the president hungry?
Sorry, let's take a digression away from economics to now security, because we have to also talk about, if you want to talk about food production in a country, then security must also be at the heart of the matter. One of the things the president also mentioned today is that his administration is working diligently to enhance national security, ensuring the economy experiences improved growth and performance. And, you know, if you remember last week, there was a United Nations General Assembly, and then one of the things Nigeria put on the table of the UN General Meeting was that, okay, give us a permanent seat at the Security Council Committee in the United Nations. So this was also a conversation that the president pushed forward to the United Nations Congress to say, let us have a permanent seat from Nigeria that's going to represent Africa, represent Nigeria. But of course, on the other side of things too, there's been that conversation that what you don't have, you cannot give. So some are saying that if you want the peace committee, if you want to be in the peace committee of the United Nations, then you should actually ensure that there's peace and security in your country. And that's, I'm not sure, would be, rightly, done by the president. The president cannot even boldly say this, because if you look at the northeast arm of the country, you see that there's still a lot of turbulence, insurgency, and all of that in Borno State and some other places. So what do you make of this? The president says we are on the right track in terms of security, and he wants a permanent seat.
There are 54 countries in Africa. And if Africa is going to be given a slot, whether 1 slot or 2 slots, you must consider the interests of the foreign powers that colonized Africa. Britain colonized Africa. France also colonized Africa. They have interest. France and Britain happen to be a member of the superpower, the Super Five. Because when you are talking about the Super Five, you are talking about the United States of America, you are talking about Britain, you are talking about France, you are talking about China, and you are talking about Russia. So they have interest in it. There was one time during Buhari's regime, civilian regime, Nigeria was classified as a terrorist state. There was one time like that, the government of United Arab Emirates, Dubai, said there are some big wigs in Nigeria, politicians that are sponsoring terrorism in Nigeria. What about that? To the extent that the Dubai government forwarded their names to Buhari, Buhari failed to disclose those names, let alone prosecute them according to the law. Do you think African countries will support Nigeria having a permanent seat? I would have loved Nigeria to have a permanent seat at the Security Council, but it will be very difficult because they see Nigeria as a bad example of leadership in Africa. Not that Nigerians are bad, but Nigeria is not a failed country, but we are having a failing government. We are having leaders who are no philosophers, leaders that cannot think. Let me give an example. We are having 200 million people in Nigeria. Conservative estimate. They need good road. They need quality healthcare delivery system. They need quality education. They need what we call security. They need what we call infrastructural development. They want to witness what we call economic growth and development. Then as a president, you not assume, what do I need? I need human resources. I need natural resources. Now, we don't have any natural resources. How do I ensure that all these demands are met? That is how a reasonable president will think. Then let's assume Nigeria don't even have any natural resources. Then how do I provide all these basic needs for the people? That is how a reasonable president will think. Let alone having a natural resources. Is that not a plus to your government? That is a plus. Whatever I need is available to me. How do I now utilize it? But what they have been doing is this, stealing public funds. They are so corrupt. And you can see what the United States government is saying, that they are going to deny a lot of our corrupt politicians visa. And I said it again, not just denying them visa. Those who have accounts in foreign banks, those accounts should be frozen because it is stolen funds. Don't ask me don't ask me whether I'm trying to insinuate. Do you understand?
But we can't say every of those accounts are fraudulent because some of them actually got their money fair and square without playing politics.
Politician!
A good number of them they have businesses in
your
Mali.
Country.
They have businesses across
I said
the
again
world.
in your country.
I'm asking you too. So let's get on that conversation. Now, the conversation is big when you consider Nigeria, especially in the thick of things with the African society. Nigeria is not the largest in terms of landscape or landmass, as you might call it, because we have Algeria being the first, followed by the Democratic Republic of Congo, the second. And we have quite a number of countries that are bigger. Nigeria is even about 13 countries bigger than Nigeria. Nigeria is just 923,000 kilometers square plus, you know, according to, but some of them are even over 2 million hectares in the whole, you know, if you check the frame of the land mass that we have. Now, some have said that why should Nigeria be the, like we call the giant of the African nation? Why should Nigeria be the giant of the whole continent? You know, that conversation is also there.
The population.
Yes, okay, because we know Nigeria is the most populous, right? But let's talk about some other stuff because we've seen South Africa is bettering, you know, Kenya is better, and some other countries are even better in terms of economy. If you check the economy, GDP, per capita income, and all of that, you can see that some of them are doing well. But moving forward, I want us to do a bit of, you know, solutions journalism now. What do you think Nigeria can do to be on the right path of becoming the giant of Africa again?
You must vote for the right leader. You have to vote for the right leader. We are talking about South Africa. South Africa is a multiracial country. We have some Britons who have decided to naturalize themselves as South Africans. But in Nigeria, Nigeria is a multi-ethnic country. Nigeria is made up of what we call nations. So that is why Nigeria is being classified as a nation state and not a nation. We have the Yoruba race. We have the Igbo race. We have the Hausa race. We have the Fulani race. We have the Edo race. We have the Ijaw race in Nigeria. The population is there. A country built on mutual suspicion. A faulty foundation. That has been the problem we are having presently in Nigeria. So the resources is there. Even though you say the land mass is not even as much as being expected. Let me give you an instance. Look at the Indigbos. The Indigbo is made up of 5 states. When you measure that state, the 5 states, the geographical size is the same size with Kogi State. And yet, when you go to Igbo land, the level of development in Igbo land is still low compared to Western Nigeria.
So briefly, what's the solution?
The solution is this. Nigeria must get it right. Let those leaders who are willing to develop Nigeria join politics. Because that is the only way you can be able to attain power. Not just sitting idle. God will not do for man what man can do for himself. We have that willpower to choose between the good and the evil. We have someone, one of our finest was Chief Obafemi Awolowo, a socialist to the core. You know, when he was the premier of Western region, he ensured that Western region was developed. Do you know that Western region happened to be the region that first established a television station before France? The history is there.
Absolutely. I mean, we can go on and say every of the things we want to say, but of course, what we also profess is that Nigeria will be great again, and that's one of the topics we are saying. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Anu, for having me.
Nigerian, stay tuned. We have many other stories. Of course, the big story comes right up after this. Coming up next is the big story. Thank you very much for joining us. Stay tuned and don't go nowhere.